Hey guys, how are you? Hope you guys are doing well. Today's video is going to be very brief. Bear in mind, I kind of say this all the time, but today's video is actually going to be very brief. I just wanted to share with you a topic that you guys hear about all the time, and that's about the Proverbs 31 woman. Today's video is titled, "Is the Proverbs 31 woman overrated?" And why I've asked this question is because of the way I used to think about this particular passage in the Bible. I would generally try to avoid studying it or avoid reading it. In my personal time, I would never look at it unless I was at a conference and it was being taught on, or people's Facebook statuses and this and that. I knew who she was, I knew what she did, but that was as far as it went. I used to just generally feel that she was somebody who was over preached in a sense, over glorified, and I just knew that I just didn't meet that standard, and I just thought that there was too much hype around her. I mean, there are so many amazing women in the Bible, but you know, we don't hear everyone saying, "Oh, I'm an Esther," or you know, "I'm a Ruth," or "I'm a this person," or "I'm a that person." There's always, "Hey, I'm a Proverbs 31 woman." You've got everyone declaring, proclaiming their Proverbs 31 status. And in my opinion, at that time, I thought, well, from the things I've heard about her, this doesn't really seem like a realistic standard for me to try and strive to. We've all heard of some of the amazing things that she's done. She's hardworking. The heart of her husband safely trusts in her. She knows how to deal with him with love and affection. She looks after her family. She has amazing business acumen. She is a woman of wisdom. She's kind. She's courageous. She knows how to plan and organize. And I looked at my life and I used to think, mate, not being funny, but everyone's talking about this Proverbs 31 woman. I would wake up early, go to work. After work, I'll come back, let's say about 8 o'clock or whatever. And by that time, I'm already tired. And I want to go to bed, let alone stay up and cook and think about managing anything else apart from what I'm doing. And this was, you know, even now I'm married, I wake up and I go to work and I come back. And sometimes I don't feel like cooking. Sometimes I don't want to do it. Sometimes, you know, I don't feel like being nice or kind or all these things that she is. And so I looked at her and I used to think, yeah, right, you don't know how busy I am and you don't know how busy things are in this 21st century. Like, it's completely different to how things used to be. But that was genuinely how I felt, so I would avoid it. One day I felt really led to kind of, do you know what, Nicola, sit down and actually begin to study this for yourself. As I began to study her, something happened. And that was, I realized how afraid I was of not being able to meet this standard, and how insecure and how really inadequate I felt in comparison to this woman's life. She has the ability to do so many things, and let's be honest, for someone who doesn't feel like their life is that put together, the prospect of someone who is can seem rather daunting in comparison. And these are all the fears and the feelings that started to come to the surface. We all hear people say things like, you're not going to find a perfect spouse, you're not going to find a perfect job, you're not going to find a perfect situation, nothing is going to be perfect. And I hear those kind of things and I'm like, yeah, that is true, like it is true. But then at the same time, I think of the scripture that says in Matthew 5:48 that says, therefore be ye perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. And I said something like that and I'm like, but Jesus spoke a benediction. He spoke a command over us to be perfect. And I know in context this scripture is talking about love, and not just loving your brother, because that's easy. Sinners can do that, tax collectors can do that, but loving those who don't love you or those who hate you. As he spoke that, he actually said that you have the same ability or same capacity to love as your Father in heaven loves. You have the same capacity to operate as your Father in heaven operates. So just kind of stay with me, because with regards to the Proverbs 31 woman, I'm going somewhere. So I kind of took that scripture and I looked up the word perfect, because yes, we're not perfect, but we are being perfected. But then how can you speak be ye perfect? I was like, what? And That word perfect in the Greek basically is a word teleos. I'm probably butchering how it's supposed to be said, but it's teleos. That word means to be complete in all parts, to be mature, or to be fully developed in some sort of Christian character. And one of the definitions I found interesting was it meant to be of excellence and efficiency. And I was like, But that is what kind of stuck out to me. And so I began to look at this Proverbs 31 woman, and I said, yeah, but everyone says she's perfect. And you know, the reality of it is we confuse perfect and perfectionism in a sense. And perfectionism is something that you're always striving to but never attaining, and it's not a good thing. One thing I realized was when Jesus said to his disciples, be ye perfect, and he commanded them to be perfect, that perfection was spoken into them. You know, the word talks about that the kingdom of heaven is on the inside of you. There is literally nothing that you need that hasn't already been given to you. It's just this journey that we're on. It's just the unveiling and the revealing of who we really are on the inside. It's like you spend time in the presence of God and the layers are ripped back because there's treasure and there's gold on the inside of you. So when it says be perfect, perfection is already on the inside of you. It's not something that you're striving to become. It's something that you spend your time revealing and discovering the real you that's on the inside. And that being able to operate in that standard of excellence is already on the inside of you. And when I began to hold on to that truth, my idea of the Proverbs 31 woman began to change. In reality, there are degrees of excellence. What is spoken in that scripture that says, be ye perfect, be you of excellent standard, what is spoken of in that scripture is being of the kind of excellence that will distinguish you and characterize his kingdom. I began to realize that although at times we don't feel perfect, we go through tribulations, we go through things that reveal the perfection on the inside of us, that perfect us, and that help to build our characters. You know, I'm sure the Proverbs 31's one woman's life wasn't, you know, exactly all together, but I'm sure that her husband wasn't always easy and graceful. I'm sure her kids weren't always sweet and nice all the time. I'm sure she went through her own seasons of ups and downs and this and that. But one thing I began to gather was that this woman did operate out of a standard of excellence, and that she didn't compromise that standard. You know, the Bible talks about whatever your hands find to do it with all of your might. So that means that if you're going to work, don't go to work half-heartedly. Do it with all of your might. If you're married, don't love your spouse half-heartedly. Do that with all of your might. If you have children, don't deal with them half-heartedly. Do it with all of your might. If you start a project, don't just start and stop and start and stop. Do it with all of your might. That is what essentially it is to be excellent. That you pour yourself into what you're doing. As I began to understand this, I realized that the Proverbs 31 woman isn't an unrealistic standard to strive to, even in the 21st century, of all the things that we go through in our lives. It's not unrealistic. Why? Because I have been given everything already that I need to be able to do what I need to do and do it to the best of my ability. Honestly, I realized that, yeah, do you know what? She is a wonderful example of a godly woman, and yes, she is a wonderful example of what it means to walk in excellency. But she's fantastic at many things, but above everything, she fears the Lord. And this kind of put the cherry on top of the icing, or the cherry on top of the cake, or however you say the saying, because I began to realize that yes, although we should want to be good at the things we do, her strength didn't come from putting all her energy and focus into that. Her strength really came from her heart of worship, and it really came from her lifestyle of worship. Being a Proverbs 31 woman is more than a slogan. It's not just a status. It's a lifestyle of worship. It's a lifestyle that honors and reveres God. It's a lifestyle that loves Him. One thing I love about this woman is that she arises whilst it's still night. So before dawn even comes, she's up. and she watches over her household. She dedicates time to prayer, to worship. And one thing I couldn't really fault her on is her dependency on God, because to be able to be good in all these areas, or to be able to see all these areas of your life flourish all at the same time, it really does. It's not something that you can do in your own strength, and it's not something that you can do in your own might, but it really does take dependency on God. I found that rather than being intimidated by the Proverbs 31 woman, it's actually an encouragement to all women, and an encouragement to myself to pursue a deeper relationship and a more intimate relationship with God, and knowing that as I seek Him, all things will be added onto me, and all other areas will be brought into fruition. The thing is, the more we see Him, the more we become like Him. There is so much that's on the inside of us that we haven't discovered yet. We have the ability to do so much that we haven't even learned about yet. And as we see Him and we behold Him, we are being transformed into His very image, and the true us, the true nature that He's put on the inside of us, the layers are being peeled back. Yes, it is good, and I'm not against it. Learn how to throw down in the kitchen. Learn how to, to balance whatever you need to balance, and be excellent. Do what you love to do and do it well. And I'm not saying you shouldn't focus on those things, because yes, you should. Someone needs to do it. But I'm saying your focus should be in seeing Him and beholding Him, and allowing Him to transform you and to reveal the real you, so you can really begin to operate in and walk in this excellency that He has called you to walk into. So that is today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you do, you know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And just want to say thank you to everyone who's emailed and asked questions. I will be covering those in the next few weeks, so make sure you guys stay tuned. I love you, and I'll see you guys soon. Ciao, ciao.